God's law number 9. Must all murderers be put to death? Jesus said, Matthew 5:19, do and teach God's law. Hello, everybody. I'm Jim McCotter. Welcome. This is the 6th commandment of the 10 commandments. Deuteronomy 5:17 says, quote, you must not murder, end quote. The King James Version reads, quote, thou shalt not kill, end quote. But that is not the best translation. The word murder is more accurate. Furthermore, murder is always wrong, whereas to kill a murderer, as in capital punishment, is always right. There are many verses in both the Old and New Testament confirming justice in killing for capital punishment crimes, murder being one. The Apostle Paul said in Romans 13:4, quote, for the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid. For rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servant, agents of wrath to bring punishment on the wrongdoers, end quote. A sword has only one purpose. That's to put someone to death. 2 of the many verses for capital punishment in the Old Testament are Genesis 9:6 and Leviticus 24:17. And in the New Testament, Jesus affirmed capital punishment in Matthew 15:4, and the Apostle Paul did in Romans 1:32 and 13:4. To not have swift capital punishment for murder is a crime itself against God, His law, and all civilization. Those who think it does not help to stop crime to have capital punishment for murder need to realize there was a time in the world when there was no capital punishment law at all against any crime. With the first murder, when Cain murdered Abel, God put a mark on Cain so no one would kill him. Without capital punishment in the world, how did that work out for civilization? The entire world civilization, it grew so bad in time that there were only 8 people left on the earth that were righteous. Noah, his 3 sons, and their wives. The world became totally hopeless and lost. Genesis 6:5 through 13, reading in part, it describes, quote, the Lord observed the extent of human wickedness on the earth, and He saw that everything they thought or imagined was consistently and totally evil. It broke His heart, and the Lord said, I will wipe this human race I have created from the face of the earth. But Noah found favor with the Lord. Noah was a righteous man, the only blameless person living on earth at the time, and he walked in close fellowship with God. Noah was the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now God saw that the earth had become corrupt and was filled with violence. God observed all this corruption in the world, for everyone on earth was corrupt. So God said to Noah, I've decided to destroy all living creatures, for they have filled the earth with violence, end quote. In Genesis 9, after the flood, and God started all over, God, for the first time, instituted capital punishment for all murder. God reinstated it again in the full Mosaic law, as did Jesus reaffirm it in Matthew 15:4 and the Apostle Paul in Romans 1:32 and 13, verse 4. Most nations today now have capital punishment for murder, though some countries use it unjustly. Other nations, like the United States, use it so seldom or so far removed from the time of the crime that it totally sets the heart of murderers to do even more evil. Ecclesiastic 8:11 says, quote, because the sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is totally set in them to do more evil, end quote. And worse yet, in America today, many murderers have been freed sooner or later after committing murder. This stupidity promotes more murder. In that sense, judges themselves have become murder accomplices. Years of appeals and technical mishaps trying to free murderers only sets hearts to do more evil. Biblical law says if 2 or 3 witness a murder, That's all that's needed to put the murderer to death. Murderers that walk free commit more crime and usually more murder. How stupid when a mass murder or even individual murder is seen by many witnesses and sometimes by millions on video, but then to be, quote, presumed innocent until proven guilty, end quote. If two or more witnessed the murder, they are already proven guilty. If the witnesses are confirmed, to then have prolonged defense trials after that for the wicked is an abomination with the Lord. Proverbs 17:15 says, quote, he who defends the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, end quote. There should be no exception to have capital punishment for any murderer, not even a plea deal for insanity. For that matter, all murder is insanity. And there should be no exception for a so-called minor of any age who is a murderer. The most insane man and the youngest murderer have more intelligence and understanding than animals, or they wouldn't commit murder. Moreover, God said any animal that kills a person must die. Genesis 9:5-6 reads in part, and I will require the blood of anyone who takes another person's life. If a wild animal kills a person, it must die. And anyone who murders a fellow human must die. If anyone takes a human life, that person's life will also be taken by human hands. For God made human beings in his own image, end quote. 3 times God says, quote, anyone who murders must die, end quote. God says murder is wrong for 2 reasons. Number 1, they are murdering, quote, a fellow human, end quote. And number 2, they are murdering a human who is made in, quote, God's own image, end quote. The first reason is more than sufficient for capital punishment, to have equal justice. If they murder a human, putting him to death, then the fellow human murderer must be put to death. A human life for a human life, equal justice. To not put the murderer to death is to declare that the innocent victim was of a lower nature, less than human. The second reason to have capital punishment for a murderer is even of much greater reason. A murderer has murdered God's image. A human is the only thing on earth that God made in his image. A murderer has now also defied God himself. He has defied God in 4 ways. Number 1, what God himself made. Number 2, what God made for himself. Number 3, what God made to be like himself. And number 4, putting himself over God himself. God in his law allows pity and mercy in a lot of areas, but never for a murderer. Those who don't support swift capital punishment for any and all murders are themselves accessory to defying God in all the above 4 areas. Proverbs 21:15 says, quote, justice is a joy to the godly, but it terrifies the evildoers.